Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and your favorite retro video game YouTuber probably went on vacation in 2023 and never came back. They decided that it wasn't worth it anymore, and we're seeing a dwindling of content creators in the space. And I think that there are three reasons for this. I think there's three reasons why we don't see as much retro video game content, and there's more than three reasons, right? But these are the three reasons that stand out to me as someone who dabbles in retro video game content from a collector's standpoint. I talk a lot about collecting retro video games on my channel. I usually do it in a short form, on the fly delivery style, but every once in a while I'll go ahead and put together a edited video for the subscribers of the channel, just so that I can kind of get my thoughts out a little bit more clearly, hopefully. So I want to look at three reasons today why we're seeing this dwindling in retro video game content. And I want to start with the first reason. First reason is simply because YouTube is hard, right? YouTube is not an easy thing to do. I know a lot of times people see different content creators jump on and they think, you know, it's easy. Everyone tries to do it. And once you start to do YouTube, once you actually start to try and make videos and try to post, you realize how difficult it is to be consistent, to do it every day. Even if you want to do it every week, some people struggle doing it every month. And it's just hard to be consistent because it can be time consuming. If you're the type of person, and it depends on who you are, right? Some people like to have very well thought out videos. They like to have a streamlined message where they kind of go through and break things down very intricately. You have people who just kind of deliver their message through a stream of consciousness. They don't do a lot of editing. They kind of just do it really rough, which is probably more so my style. But regardless of how you do it, whether you write out scripts, whether you have notes, whether you just kind of freestyle, just the act of making the video and uploading it to YouTube can be difficult when you're trying to be consistent. So that's one part that makes just making YouTube videos difficult. And then, when you start to really gain traction on YouTube and you start to build a name and you start to build a presence and you do start to cultivate an audience and a subscriber base, you're going to see that there are people who come out of the woodwork. They're like little minions who it just seems like they can't stand to see anyone succeed. And 10 times out of 10, the people who, drop hate comments or people who try to downplay what you're doing, almost 10 times out of 10, it's people who either have failed at YouTube. Even if they were successful at one point, they were never consistent, so they lost all their momentum. It's usually people who have tried to build an audience, but they just don't have I'm not even going to say the talent. I'm just going to say they don't have the consistency. They don't have the work ethic, because it is work. They don't have the work ethic to consistently post videos. And because of that, they lose momentum. They're not able to build or cultivate an audience, and they just die out. And so when that happens, there's no way that you're going to have the drive and the motivation to continue to produce content. And I think just the mere fact that doing YouTube is difficult, I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen a drop off in terms of YouTube content creators around the retro video game space. That's definitely one reason. The second reason, in my opinion, why this type of content is dwindling away is because coming up with ideas is a lot more difficult. The niche of retro video game hunting, collecting, gaming, things of that nature, that niche was absolutely saturated in 2020. I mean, you had hundreds, if not thousands of people coming on YouTube with all different types of ideas. I mean, any retro game that you could think of has more than likely been reviewed, covered, streamed in some way, shape, or form. Almost every aspect of the retro game community has been touched. And so what we see now here in 2025 is mostly either pickup videos, game hunting videos, or nostalgia-driven content. That's typically what you're going to see. And the fact of the matter is that not everyone can continue to game hunt every day or every week now in 2025. People have returned back to work. There's no more free money. I mean, life has started to life again for a lot of people. And so pickup videos, even from a content creator perspective, is just not as feasible as it once was. Not just because of the time factor, but also because of the prices. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But the changing in prices and the inflation in the retro video game market has made game hunting videos and pickup videos a lot more difficult to create and produce. Now, don't get me wrong. You still have a good amount of creators who have been in the game and they're still in the game. They still go about doing their, game hunting videos. They still do their yard sales and their flea markets and their thrift stores and stuff like that. But that's really the bread and butter, For most of those channels that do the game hunting, that's strictly what they do. They don't dabble into other topics. They don't try to go, off the reservation and touch on other things. They're strictly game hunting, and that's what people watch for. And, not everyone can do that because not everyone either has the time, the energy, the resources. They don't live in a location that's conducive to that. So you have to really be in a specific situation to continue to produce that type of content. But that's become a little bit more difficult for content creators. Then you have the nostalgia driven content. And you have a lot of creators out there who have maybe like a lot of home video from when they were kids, or pictures or different things that they can use to create content around nostalgia driven retro gaming content, which I think still has an audience. There are still people who love to tap in and listen to old stories about people playing Super Metroid or people playing Mario Brothers. I think there's still that niche that's there, but even that I think is starting to kind of dwindle down a little bit because, as I said, back in 2020, a lot of that content was saturated. People got their nostalgic fix like crazy between 2020 and 2022, I would say, maybe even the first half of 2023. But by the second half of 2023, people were pretty much over it. It was kind of go time and time to kind of get reacclimated to getting back outside, doing regular things, and not living on YouTube every day. And when everything has been done and every topic has been touched, coming up with new ideas is just a significant challenge for a lot of content creators. And I think that is definitely a big reason. The last reason that I think the retro gaming YouTube space has dwindled, and this is probably more on the viewers' part, more so than the content creators' part, but I think many viewers feel like they can no longer participate in retro gaming, which I think kind of just has hindered the view counts, right? If everyone's able to participate in retro video games, like if you can go on YouTube, hear someone recommend a very cool Super Nintendo game, and you know that you have the ability to go outside and find that game at a reasonable price and take it back home and enjoy it, I think a lot of people are more enthused to watch these videos. And I think that's why a lot of the hidden gems videos and pickup videos, I think that's why they were so entertaining to a lot of people, because if you saw a game that you were really impressed by or impressed with, you knew that you could go to your mom and pop shop, GameStop. You could even go on eBay and find the game at a decent price and then add it to your collection. And I think that in 2025, a lot of viewers don't feel like they can do that anymore. They don't feel like they can participate in retro game collecting the way they once wanted to, or the way they once could. And I don't think it's just because of the prices. I think it's also because a lot of collectors and gamers and retro gaming enthusiasts, they've collected a lot of the lower end titles. You've probably got a copy of, Kingdom Hearts in your collection. You probably have a Super Mario World in your collection. You probably have a lot of the more common stuff. So when people come on YouTube looking for the stuff that they don't have, the hidden gems, the more rare stuff, and you realize, oh my gosh, that thing is that game is a car payment, or that game is a rent payment in some cases, I think people are just turned off. And really how a lot of viewers feel, they feel like resellers have killed the market, and that a lot of them feel like they've been relegated to GameStop. GameStop is really the only place that they can go to pick up games now. And I think that is a big hindrance for sure to people feeling enthused about engaging in video game pickups, retro game pickups, and then in turn even watching some of the retro gaming content. You know, there's a lot that goes into that. Of course, a lot that impacts, you know, how people feel. But I think the pricing and the inaccessibility is definitely a factor here. Me, myself personally, I started my channel purely out of a place of passion, out of a place of, you know, not really having anything else to do at the time. I was home. We were all home. We couldn't go outside. And I just kind of wanted an outlet to talk about something that was really important to my childhood, you know. And as I had those conversations, it then turned into me wanting to add games to my collection. And then me, myself, actually going out and doing video game pickups. And I've done the pickup videos thing and the game hunting videos and things like that. But over the last few years, I've kind of expanded. I've tried to talk about different things. I've talked about life. I've tried to talk about, real aspects of finance and how even video games can impact relationships. And, you know, I've tried to dabble into different topics at the risk of offending people, upsetting people, turning people off, making people unsubscribe. But I've been okay with that. I've been okay with taking those chances with my audience and, you know, opening up the door for other topics and other conversations. And while, yes, it's probably cost me some subscribers, on the flip side of that, you know, I realized that it resonated with a lot of people. You know, a lot of people really resonated with some of those topics that weren't specifically dealing with retro video games. People could appreciate the human side of the conversation around video games, whether it's how they impact you, like I said, relationally, mentally, emotionally, the financial impacts, things, you know, anything in between. And I think moving forward, when you start to think about content creators, and, you know, the conversations that they have, I think having an open mind and being willing to expand the conversation is going to be important. You still want to keep the main thing, right? I'm always going to collect retro video games and video games in general, and that's always going to be a primary topic of conversation. But I think opening the door to include different aspects of life into the conversation, I think is beneficial to the community, to my community. And I think it opens the door for more fun topics and fun ideas. So, those are my thoughts. I'm interested to know what you think. What do you think are some of the reasons for some of your favorite YouTubers who are not here? Why do you think they stopped making content? Why do you think they're no longer around? What do you think has changed in the retro gaming community? What role do the content creators play? What role do the viewers play? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.